All right, what the author had asked us to do then, again, was to add the code that you see right here. So we wanted to have, sorry, it's got to be down further. We wanted to add the IB func start over, and we wanted to call this. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to do a Control-C. I am just going to copy it in. Hopefully I won't have any problems doing that, but we'll see. So I'm just going to paste it in. So now I've got that new function in there. All right, I've got my start over function, but it is not right now linked up to the button. All right, and remember the way that there's different ways of doing that, but the way I'm going to use is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to, hopefully I'm doing this right, I'm going to click on the start over in here, hold down on the touchpad, hold down on control, and drag that. Come on, let me drag. Boy. What I want to do is I want to drag that from here to my view controller. Okay? And for whatever reason, it doesn't want me to do that. John, you're going to have to help me here. Am I just having a brain fart or what? Yeah. Okay, I've got the function right there, right? I want to connect this start over with the view controller. Correct? Isn't that what I want to do? So don't I want to click in here? Do I want to go from here to here or from here to here?
I would say from there to there. But
I can't tell by reading your fingers. Seriously, from here? From the
view controller over.
From the view controller over. Okay, let me try that then. But it's not
connected.
Doesn't look like it's connecting. That's what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Last time you drug it from the start over button up to the top. And
Then let's try that. I'm not proud. I'll ask for help from anybody and everybody. All right. So let's grab the button.
up to the yellow square at the top of the
Right. So let's grab the button right here. Again, hold down on the touchpad on control, and now that's going to move it, which is not what I wanted. And I want to set it to start over. And hopefully that worked. All right. So how did we do that? Well, thanks to Travis and John. Highlight the start over button. Make sure you're holding down on the control key and making sure you're holding down on the touchpad, and then drag up to here on your view controller. When you do that, that black box should come up that has a listing of all the different things, and you want to make sure that the one you connected to is start over. All right? Now, they do mention, it says, for consistency's sake, this is on the bottom of page 95. The author says, to be consistent, you should go up to your view did load. Remember, that's kind of like our constructor. And right now, it's right near the top of the program. But right now, the view did load calls start new round, and then it calls update labels right there. Instead of calling start new round up in view did load, this should be called start new game, because start new game calls start new round. All right? So it's very important that you're constantly going back and looking at your program and making sure that the right things are calling the right things in the right places. So I'm going to change this from start new round to start new game. And if I confused you, there's a much better explanation probably than the one I just gave you that's on the bottom of page 95 in the handout. And if I had just turned the page over, that's what Travis had said, and he's right. It says we need to open the storyboard, control drag from the start over button to the view controller, okay? And pick start over from the pop-up, okay? That gets us down to the bottom of page 96. You may have noticed in your handout on page 97 at the top of the page, you may have noticed this. Well, I did not know if every one of you had the handout with you today. I didn't know. So, the handout that I gave you, which is very small, has got this code on it. This is what we're putting in there for our about page or whatever you want to call it. So if you already have the handout, you know, if you already have the big thing with you, the 152-page document, you've already got this. But what the author says is this is going to be our about screen. Remember that the way our app looks right now, you know, we've got all of our widgets in there, but over in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got that widget that's got like a curly eye on it. That's our information button. The idea is when we click the information button, when we click that I button, this is the screen that's going to come up. All right? And when we click close, this screen will close and our regular game will come back up again. All right? So that's the next thing. That gets us to about page 106, which is where I hope to at least get to today. All right? And I'm just going to tell you this real quickly, just so you know. I have no idea what my weekend is going to be like, but my hope is that I get to watch the Packer game on Sunday. All right? I don't know if you heard the joke or you saw the thing out on Facebook. They have a thing on Facebook with a picture of Aaron Rodgers, and he's laughing. And he says, who do we play this week? Dallas? Oh, I thought we already had a bye week. You know, I hate it when people talk like that because Dallas won last week. All right? So we'll see. All right? But if it turns out that I am home on Sunday afternoon, then in between watching the Packer game, or if it sucks, I'll turn it off or down, I'm going to go through the last 46 pages of this and walk through everything and do the code and a walkthrough. All right? Then when you come in here next Tuesday, I'm just going to talk about what I did and show it to you. There's no way, there's enough stuff to do with changing the background and putting in the images, etc., that we probably won't even be able to do it in 2 periods. All right? So I figure that if on Monday, if I spend the first half hour to hour explaining to you what I did and showing you what I did, you'll have a period and a half to try to finish this up yourselves. All right? Also remember, and again, Doug Tabbitt used to always say this. He said, you know, when people try to put something over on him, he would always say, you know, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. In the same way, on your P drive, under P:CIS 152.149 SC for the secure coding class, in class folder. I think it's the 12.8 folder. All the final code is in there. But if what you do is you go in and you drag in that and you try to turn that in for yours, I'll know that you did that. I'm not saying any of you would do that. But I don't want to tempt people into doing it because that's wrong. All right? So backing up just a second, back up to page 96. The author says here, I'm down towards the middle part of the page. Adding an about, I guess it's at the bottom of the page. Adding an about screen. The author says, I hope you're not fed up with the app yet, but there's one more feature I'd like to add to it. An about screen that shows some information about the game. Again, there's the screen on page 97. He says this new screen contains a so-called text view. What I want you to get out of this is we're going to come in and we're going to put a button. You can do it already if you want to, but we'll do it in a second as a class. You put a close button down here. This is a control right here. See this? This is one huge control. it says it's going to contain a so-called text view. So we're going to put a button and we're going to center it pretty much down at the bottom there. And then this is going to take up just about everything else on the page. All right. So, as it says, you get to the About screen by tapping that I button. I already mentioned that to you. All right. So, it says most apps actually do have more than one screen to them. I think you probably already knew that. All right. So, the author is saying in here, this is becoming a little bit more reminiscent of a, quote, real app, unquote. All right? It says even very simple games quite often have a how-to type of page or whatever. And then he mentions, this is down right near the bottom of the page, he says, I have pointed out to you a few times, each screen in your app needs to have its own view controller. So if you think screen, think view controller. So he says Xcode automatically created the view controller object. But do you remember when we created that? Do you remember the kind of project we chose? Does anybody remember? Not all at once. We chose single view, which means you only have one view controller. All right? So we have to go in and we have to manually add another one. So this is how the author says to do it. Again, I'm down near the bottom of page 97. The author says, go to the Xcode file menu. So we're going to add a new file. So go to the file menu, choose new file. In the window that pops up, we don't want to now choose single view controller. All right. It says make sure the iOS source is on the left. So choose iOS and then choose source and then find here where it says Cocoa Touch class. I'm going to show you it also in just a second. So that's what we're supposed to choose. Well, and I'll, like I said, I'll do it with you in just a second. Then you click Next. And Xcode gives you some options to fill out as mentioned here. This is the way that you should fill out those options. So what do we want to do? We want to go from my Xcode window. I want to do a file, and I want to do a new. All right. What was it? A file, new file? File, new file. All right. So from Xcode, file, new file. It says there, make sure that when you do this, iOS is what's here, and source is chosen. And you want to choose Cocoa Touch class. All right? Everything looks peachy, so I'm going to click the Next button. Then it says, what do you want to call this stuff? And this is what's shown in your book or your handout, whatever, on page 98 at the top of the page. The class should be called About View Controller. Notice by default it's called Table View Controller, so we're going to change that. The subclass should be UI View Controller, not UI Table View Controller. And where it says Create Zip File or NIB file, XIB, leave it unchecked and make sure the language is Swift. So I'm going to come in here and make the changes that they tell you to make. So this is going to say About View Controller. It's a subclass of, I want it to be a subclass of UI View Controller. All right. So it should look like what's shown on the screen right there. All right. I believe everything that I have on the screen is exactly the way that it's shown on the top of page 98 in the book. All right. So I'm going to click Next. And it's going to ask me, where do I want to save this stuff? Well, it should automatically save it into my BullsEye folder. That should be chosen. Okay. It says also make sure group on it says BullsEye down below right here. And it does. Okay. Then they say click Create to finish. And now what you should notice after you've done all that is that we have a new file, all right, up here. All right, about viewcontroller.swift. Did I put it in the exact right place? I don't even know. I would actually like it to be in here. And I've done this before where I create something and it doesn't seem to be in the right place. I'm going to click on that hold down and try to drag it into there and let go. And if it doesn't take it, then I think it's probably okay where it is. It's not taking it, so I'm just going to leave it where it is. If it's in the wrong place, I'll know when I try to run the program. All right, on page 99, the author says to design this new view controller, you need to go over to Interface Builder. All right, so we want to go to our main storyboard. Here's the hardest question I've asked you today. How many view controllers do we currently have? It's a trick question because 2 and 1 are both correct. There are physically 2 of them because we created a second one, but we have not yet added it to our storyboard. All right? So it says to design this new controller, you need to pay a visit to the interface builder. Open main.storyboard. There is no scene representing the view controller. So what does that mean? That means we have to go add one. So we come over to here. We're going to put it in here. So I want to bring up my object builder down here. And in here, I want to type in view controller. And you'll notice when I do that, one of the things I can drag in is a new view controller. So I'm going to highlight that and drag it over here. Okay? And let go. You'll notice it doesn't always place itself in the most opportune position. So I can always take it and drag it back, drag it around or whatever. It's not that big a thing. Okay? All right. It says the new view controller is totally blank and it's in portrait orientation. Well, that isn't going to work because our game is in landscape orientation. So it says go to the yellow icon bar above the view controller to select it. So this is our new view controller right here. So we want to click right there to select it. We want to go to the attributes inspector and go to simulated metrics and go to orientation and choose landscape. All right. So the attributes inspector, simulated metrics, orientation, and we want to choose landscape. If it turns so it looks like the other one, you did it right. If you try doing it and you go, I did what you said and it didn't work, then raise your hand. Again, that's what's shown on the bottom of page 99 and the top of page 100. All right? So, on page 100, the author says you may need to rearrange the storyboard so that the two view controllers don't overlap. And they mention right there that Interface Builder does not do the best job of being neat and tidy and putting things where you would think they should actually be put. So, the next thing we're supposed to do is on this new one that we just added right here, close that. So on this new one, I want to come in here and right in the middle, I want to put a button, but down near the bottom, centered near the bottom. So I'm going to come down here where I just typed in view controller. I'm going to type in button. There's my button. I'm going to drag it down near the bottom here and center it. So it looks pretty much the way that it does in the book. All right. And that's in the book on page 101. And I'm going to double click on it and type in the word close. All right, it may or may not still be centered, so I'm going to double check and make sure it is. All right, looks pretty good. So there's my close button. Next, again, I'm following the steps. I'm on the middle of page 100. I'm going to drag a text view so that it covers up most of the space above the button. So again, I come down here, and I want to now type in text view. There it is. I'm going to highlight it. try to highlight it. What I want when I get done is I want my screen to look pretty much the way that it looks on the top of page 101. So I'm going to widen this out a bit. All right. Right now it gives you the typical lorem ipsum type of text. It says you can double click on it to make its contents editable. So we want to change it. So we want to double click on this, and we don't want its contents to say lorem ipsum and all that other good stuff. We want it to say the stuff that I just gave you on that piece of paper. It's also in your book on page 101. And to put it, you have to hold down, I believe, on the Control plus hit Enter to put in a blank line. So that's what I want to do here. So Control, Enter, there's a blank line, and we're supposed to put another one here. All right. And as far as I can see, at least, it looks pretty close. Again, I could change the, if I want to, I can change the font style, I can change the font size, I can change anything I want to change. So again, this was, so it says, and fame, that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, and it will be in a second because it shouldn't say the close you are, it should say the closer you are. There. That looks pretty good. As far as I can tell, it looks pretty similar to what's now shown in the book. Please look on the bottom of page 101 in the handout. After you've done all this, as they mention on the bottom of page 101, very bottom of the page here, the author says, make sure you go over and in the editable box itself, I don't remember if that's the connections, it's probably the attributes inspector, make sure that you uncheck the editable box. If you don't do that, when the user opens that up, they can change the text that's in there. You wouldn't want that to happen. If you say, I don't get it, well, then just look up here. It's not difficult. With the box chosen, all right, so with it highlighted, and it is, I'm going up in here, and someplace up here, there is an editable right there. And I'm going to uncheck it. There. Now it's read only, which is what we want to have happen. If you couldn't find it or I went too fast, raise your hand. All right, I'm up to page 102. And on page 102, the author says, that's the design of the screen. It's finished for now. It says, so how do you open this new About screen? It says, storyboards have a neat trick to do this that are pronounced segues. Okay? And a segue they mention here on page 102 is how you transition from one screen to the other. All right. So we want to click the I button from our original view screen, then control drag. So in other words, we want to click this I button right here, hold down on the control key, hold down on the touchpad, and just drag over to here. And that should add the segue for us. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right here. So with that I button highlighted, all right, I'm going to touch, control, drag over to here, and let go. And it says, what do you want? It comes up with this box that you see right here. All right, and it says, do you want a push, do you want a modal, or do you want a custom? We want modal. And what that'll mean is basically when we click that, we want that screen, we'll tell it to open that screen, and that'll have a focus then. All right, so we're going to choose modal as is shown there on the top of page 103. Please look up on the screen though, and notice what happens after I click modal. I now have an arrow. Now it's saying there is an association between these two controllers. All right, there wasn't one previously. And I'm not going to say, hey, what or whatever, but think about what we have to do next. We have to make sure that when you click the close button, this actually closes, and that one opens again. So that's what's left to do. All right. It says, click the arrow to select it. I'm on page 103. So I'm going to click the arrow right there to select it. Okay. It says segues also have attributes. So in the attribute inspector, choose transition. All right. So I want to go to the attributes inspector. And we want to choose here under the, is it under kind? I don't remember. But somewhere in here, we want to end up choosing for our segue, we want to choose transition and flip horizontal. All right, the flip horizontal is under transition. And you say it's not here. Well, we might have to drag up or down to see it. Should be there. Well, that's not looking real good, is it? Huh. That's file. It's not there. That's not there. It's not there. It should be right there.
Your kind's at the modem.
If you go,
I've got my kind set to modal, and isn't that what they said to do?
open your left-hand menu,
All right. Open here.
no, on the next row up, that left-hand,
Right there.
yep. And now click on main storyboard.
All right.
Yeah, it should show there now.
That's at the customs.
Yours is what?
Yeah, somebody here's is saying storyboard segue there, and it should be saying, simulated methods.
Well, it's saying that because I'm clicking the actual segue itself. I thought that's what they told us to click there. Because it says storyboard segue exactly the way it does on 103. But in 103 on the book, it's got identifier like I have. Then it has segue class where mine just says class. Then it has segue module where mine just says module. Then it has segue, presentation, and transition. And I have none of those. When we set this up, all right, when we set up the transition between the two, Did you say, Travis, you chose custom?
No, I said, it says in your kind, it says shows custom, but then again, when you clicked open it, it said module and all the other ones in there, so I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if it.
I chose modal. I can remove the connection. I can remove the segue and just re-add it. So there it's gone. So I can go back and try to add it again. There it is.
This time you drug to the bolt where the words were.
Yeah.
Last time you drug to the bottom.
Yeah, maybe that was it. So make sure that when you click here, hold down on control and hold down on the touchpad. The first time I dragged over here and it didn't work, but the second time I dragged up to the actual text view, then it worked. All right. Both ways created a segue, but doing it the first time, it didn't show me the transition stuff over here. What the transition is, the flip horizontal, when we run this in just a second and when you go from one screen to the other, it'll literally flip. All right, if you don't do that, then there's no transition. One screen just disappears and the other one appears. By setting it up to flip transitional like this, the idea is it looks a little bit more reminiscent of the way you probably set up a game. All right? All right, so they tell you next you can now run the app, but the only thing is right now we have to put some code in there for the close method. So I'm up to page 104. All right. On page 104 in our handout, so on page 104, it says, open the About View Controller.swift and replace its contents with the ones that are shown on the screen. Just in case you don't have the handout with you, I'm not going to do mine yet. I'm going to leave this up here for a minute, but put that in there. All right, so open up your About View Controller.swift file, which remember was way over here. All right, I'm going to leave that open, but open it up and make sure this is the code you have. What it's saying is when you close the button, when you click the close button, I want the About controller to close, and I want the main story, our main board, the game, to open. All right? So you'll have to do that. Okay. And since it's an IB action, we're also going to have to manually hook it up to that button. All right? I'm going to do both in just a second. I'll leave it up there so you've got that, and then I'll go through the steps and do it myself in I'll give you about 5 minutes. Come hell or high water, even if I go till right at 10 o'clock, I'm getting you up to page 106 in the middle of the page where it says making it look good. That's where we're going to finish today. All right, so if you had any problems with that, I'm just going to grab all the code right here and copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to open up my About View Controller.swift. All right, and I'm going to replace all the code that's in there with that. Okay, so there's something missing. I didn't get it. I highlight all of it or whatever. I didn't. I need 2 curlies. And please notice, if you look up on the screen here, I'm on page 104. It says there's still one thing that you have to do. All right, two things really. You have to control drag from the close button to the view controller, and you have to choose. All right, it says you have to choose the close button in the view controller. All right, it says the close action should be listed in this pop-up, but it isn't. So the author is showing you right now there's an error in the code. All right, and the error is that right now it's not recognizing that view controller. So the author says the problem is it does not know about the storyboard does not know that it's supposed to represent the about view controller. It says you first added the about view controller.swift source file rather, then you drag the new view controller out, but you didn't do that linking that you have to do. All right, so the author says you have to do it now. The good news is it's not very much to do. It says this is easily remedied. It says go into the interface builder, select the new view controller, go to the identity inspector, all right, which is the third button over, the one next to the attributes inspector, and under custom class, type in about view controller. Well, that's fine, Jeff. What the heck does all that mean? All right. It means go into here. Make sure that what is selected is this. All right. Go in here and find, where is it? Was it the attributes inspector? I'm sorry. All right. Go to the identity inspector. As it says, that's the button to the left of the attributes inspector. Come on. All right, and then right here, with that selected, he says type in about view controller under custom class. And I'm in the wrong spot, but I'll fix it in a second. All right, in interface builder, select the new view controller. So I'm in here, in interface builder, select the new view controller. That's where I am. All right, under custom class, right here, it says we are to type in about view controller. And you see that the IntelliSense picked it up already. All right, the other thing I have to do is I put code in here. Let me close this. And I have not linked up my code for my new view controller button. I have not linked that code up with this button. I have to do that. Well, it's in the other file, I believe. I don't want this. All right. And I probably have to lift it right up to the top. Yep. Okay. I should have done what you said, John. Bless you. Bless you. keep forgetting that. Now I got it. You said that maximize it before you do the build, correct? Okay. John has mentioned something that, because he does a little bit more tweaking around with this, a lot better than I do, that, and correct me now if I'm wrong, that when you go to run this, all right, you should always go and maximize first, maximize your screen, maximize your Xcode screen. If it's maximized and you click it, the simulator will come up maximized also. You won't have to worry about, oh, it doesn't like something I've done. No idea what it is, but I'll have to take a look at that. Responder usually means it's something with a button, but maybe it didn't like the fact that I manually, or that I copied that code in. I don't know. But the program's terminating, so I'll have to try to fix it before next class. Okay? So what he's saying is, if you've got this up and running and you don't have your screen, if your screen is not currently maximized, maximize it first by clicking the green button, then run it, and then when you run it, the simulator should come up also maximized.
Well, it comes up automatically.
Okay, comes up automatically. Said, not sure what the problem is with mine right now, but I'll look at it later and see if I can fix it. I'll see if I can even fix it before the day's over. I'll just leave it up there. So.